2020 has been thick. A haze of both relief and grief has infused the air. This is Ashley Salem. This is the first of 3 mini episodes of Adjusting, where I sit down with Eric Purcell, community leader, spiritual guide, and life coach. Eric and I talk about the overwhelm of this year, where many of us are feeling stressors and conflict coming from all directions.
So one thing that I have been feeling a lot lately is just sort of the overwhelm of 2020 and the fact that I think we as Americans don't have very much capacity for self-discipline. So when we've been enforced in this year into forced discipline,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think our country, and I haven't talked to anybody that doesn't feel at some level sort of at the end of themselves. The grief, the confusion, the isolation and loneliness. And to me, it feels like humans generally can handle a few of those. You start adding them on, it gets a lot harder. And I think Americans in general have a harder time with with the discipline. I'll just say the word like the idea of these boundaries that are very tight around us. And we're used to being able to be a little bit more free with our time, space. And I think that for me, a lot of times for me in the self-care area, just being aware of the things that are feeling like pressure is really helpful. And to me, that as I think about this year, I feel like, and a lot of even some of the conflicts that happen between people, the no mask conflict, is something like at its core, this is for a lot of people, just that overwhelm of pressure coming from all sides. So I think the first place for me, when I think about helping folks and myself feel okay, it's just kind of like, it's a lot. Mm-hmm. Let's just be real with ourselves and say it's a lot. And the expectation on ourselves should not be, I'm all okay. It really should be, I'm actually not okay. And it's okay that I'm not okay.
When I have conversations with people and hear their stories that they share with me, I'm like, okay, just stay there for a minute though. Like stay there in that feeling of this sucks. Yeah. And it just sucks, period. Yeah. Like it's not like, oh, we gotta be positive. Yeah. We gotta yes, but it also just sucks. Yeah. Like this isn't something that we can just turn the page and, because we're still in it. Yeah. And it's hard to get perspective on something when you're in it.
Yeah. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic when it was 3 weeks and then it was 4 weeks and then it was 2 months and then you start seeing people lose their capacity to stay in it. Mm-hmm. And suddenly it was like, we have to find someone to blame for all of this. And to me, that's what it felt like. It started going from, we are Americans and we're in this together, to just chaotic fighting, which is really, I think, interesting to me around self-care and conflict. Because from my perspective and kind of the philosophy I espouse around conflict is that conflict actually is something that drives us towards change and towards transformation. And it's not necessarily something to just resolve and make it go away, but it's actually, if conflict is happening, there's an opportunity to say, well, what needs to be different then? What needs to change? It's the self-reflection question. Mm-hmm. So when our country started getting a lot of conflict, that's what I started noticing. It's like, whoa, that pause moment that we had to do some self-reflecting, we didn't have the discipline to stay in it for very long. Now we're fighting and blaming each other. And I'm grieving the fact that we aren't taking the opportunity to ask different questions.
Yes.
And conflict is only going to, conflict highlights what's already there.
Yeah, it does.
So we're not gonna get anywhere unless we can take the space to do the reflecting. Yeah. Which is another self-care thing. As a parent, the thing that's really hard for me is whenever things are bad with my children, when there's a flare up of conflict with my children, behaviors or whatever, and I lose it, that interaction with my child who's 5 or who's 11, I'm the one that sets the tone for that. They're gonna do their stuff. I'm the parent. So if the interaction is going away I don't like, it's most likely because I'm not okay. And it all circles back then around to this bigger category of self-care and doing my own work. So as a parent, as a friend, as a community mate, as a citizen, as a neighbor, there are a lot of things that we can do for self-care. But I think the deeper work of self-care is not just the pampering that we all need sometimes, but it's that space, that time to reflect, to do the inner work. What I've found myself doing a lot lately, more than usual, is going for a treat of some sort, whether it's more coffee than I need, or reaching for one of our pastry, or just any, like food is one of them, but other things, like just I've been trying to find the little things that'll make me feel better.
A little comfort, a little...
Yeah, and I realized like, these aren't working because they're not actually the need that I have right now.
Yes. Yeah.
And that just highlighted for me, like, I need to take care of myself. And right now that probably doesn't mean pampering. And that's because what those things are doing is actually covering up. Rather than making me feel good. I find myself, so if I've grabbed a pastry from here at the shop, it's delicious. I don't not enjoy it, but I also find I'm not actually all that mindful of it. And pretty soon it's gone and I'm like, I just put some sugar in my body. And I realize like, I think what my heart is longing for right now is some room, some space to feel, which is scary, rather than to be numbed or satiated with some sort of other thing. And so I was like, I'm not sure what I need to do, but some sort of fasting feels right. Maybe it's from my phone and from social media. Maybe it's from maybe it's just treats and sweets. Maybe it's food altogether. I'm not sure. But I just like, there's something in me that's saying, right now it's not consuming. It's making some room for yourself.
There is so much that you're saying that I'm like, oh my gosh. There's just so many layers to this. We think it's sustaining, and we think it's, like the donut you said, we think it's something that's...
And sometimes it is. And sometimes that's just what I need, but right now it's not.
Yeah, it's a different type of satiation that, and I know right now that, everybody isn't experiencing the same COVID-19. So what I guess I'm getting at is there's multiple layers to this. Acknowledgement of this sucks, I think is something that would be great for us to do together, individually, as a community. And then also slowing down and allowing ourselves to rest, if that resonates with anyone, and reflection.
One of the things that, as I do some work on resilience, one of the categories of resilience is self-expression, which can again take on lots of different forms. But that to get it out of yourself onto some other sort of medium, onto some paper. I'm really curious how much new art and new music is going to flow out of this season.
Yes.
I think there's going to be a lot of new stuff that comes out of it. I think a lot is being created right now too, and not just because there's extra space. For many people, there is just this deep compulsion to create something.
Yes.
But I think for those who don't have that, who aren't necessarily consider themselves artistic or whatever, and used to doing things that are in the self-expression mode, it's a really important practice too, to find ways to reconnect sort of with your own identity, yourself,